So part B of the example is finding the height of tide at 10 o'clock on the 31st of July. Part C is what time will there be a height of tide of 4 metres on the afternoon flood tide of the 31st of July. So we're still looking at the 31st of July, but we're looking at a different part of the day. And as you remember, the flood tide is when the tide is coming into the port and will be from low water to high water. So looking back at the data we had for the 31st of July, we can see that 11:47 is low water, 0.6, 17:24, 5.5. So it's between these two times now that we're going to be looking at. So I'll just write those on the sheet now to begin with, using again our calculator like we did before. So low water is 11:47 and it's 0.6. High water 17:24, 5.5. Again, we work out the range, and the range this time will be 4.9. And if you remember, we needed to find the range because the curves on the graph, there are two types. There's a solid line and a dotted line. The solid line represents spring tides and the dotted line represents the neap tides. 4.9 is greater than 4.6. We never extrapolate, so if it's greater or smaller than 2.2, we would always use the dotted or the solid line. However, if it was 3.2 meters, we would go in between the solid and the dotted line and take it to a point halfway between the line to interpolate. Okay, so it's asking us for a height of tide of 4 meters. Remember, we've got the high water heights here and the low water heights just here. So we need to put in those figures that we've got already. Low water 0.6, high water 5.5. So we've got high water and low water, and like we did before, we draw a line between the two of them. Okay. So we have a line in between the two. We wanted a height of tide of 4 meters. So if we look at the 4 meter mark, we can draw a line down or up. It doesn't matter which way, as long as it's parallel. Okay, that's as far as we go for now. Now, if you remember from the last example, we have to fill in the high water times at the bottom of the graph. Our high water is 17:24, so we fill 17:24 is our high water time. Now this time we're looking at a height before high water because we wanted on the flood tide, the afternoon flood tide. So we're not interested after high water because that would be an ebb tide. So we're looking at the times before high water. So now we need to fill in the gaps there. So 1 hour before will be 16:24, 15:24, 14:24, 13:24. And again, you can see I've put the arrow, or the hour, sorry, in line with this. And in between again, you've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes. So 10-minute gaps. Right, having put those in place, we can take our 4 meter line where it intersects or cuts the times between high and low water. Take it across we're looking at the spring curve, so we take it all the way to the solid line. Okay, so it's just slightly below, parallel to the solid line. Now we're going to draw it down parallel again to so we take the line down, and as you can read, it's approximately 11 minutes before the 2 hours before high water time. So we can either work backwards or ahead. That's 14:24, 3 hours before high water. So that'd be 24, 34, 44, 54, 15:04, 15:14. So just before that is about 15:12, approximately 15:12. So our answer would be the time when the height of tide equals 4 meters on the 31st of July is 15:12. This means that if a vessel required 4 meters height of tide, he would be able to enter the port at 15:12. He would have sufficient water at that time. So you can see, when we want to find the height of tide, we put the time in first. We put the time in first and we draw up and across, and that will give us a height. If we know the height and we want to find the time, we would just work the other way.